Are you tired of not filling your RSVPs? Circus can deliver people to your event even at the last moment. Using their own advanced algorithms, they can match and connect your business with your ideal crowd. Visit circus.com to get started or request a demo. That's surkus.com.
Are you a follower?
9, 8,
Okay, so we're gonna be at
Welcome to GatherGeeks, a podcast by BizBash, the place where people passionate about meetings and events come together. Here are your hosts, BizBash CEO David Adler and Executive Editor Beth Kormanik.
Hi, David.
Hey, Beth, how are you today?
Doing well, thank you. And today our guests on GatherGeeks are Jill Taub Drury and Chris Drury of Drury Design Dynamics based in New York. They've worked with blue chip clients such as IBM, Google, and Goldman Sachs, and always are thinking about ways to push events further. Some ideas they've championed and we're going to hear about, such as activating hallways outside of the main event for people to network and connect, are now commonplace. And they were inducted into the BizBash Hall of Fame at our New York ceremony this summer when the four of us sat down to talk.
Yeah, no, I could talk for hours with them. We were geeking out on absolutely everything about the new way to think about events and meetings and human gatherings. It was just incredible. And these guys are one of the smartest couples I know in our industry.
Yes, and something we're going to hear about is how event producers can push clients to try new things. And when you've built trust with a client, this is something you can do and should do as a producer.
Oh, absolutely. I think that they become your gurus in a sense. And they feel like there's it's like a blanket of comfort when you know that the person that you're working with really knows their stuff.
Right, and it makes it more fun, I think.
Absolutely.
So let's take a listen.
You guys have been doing this a long time.
Yeah.
I want to know what's so different today than was different when you started? And what was your core beliefs, and how does the core beliefs change?
Okay, I think I'll give my point of view first, and Jill can dive in.
Sure.
I think maybe I should start with what hasn't changed.
Oh, that's a good point.
Good storytelling,
Right.
Communicating, with emotional impact, engagement, getting people excited, communicating effectively, and having fun. That's the things that haven't changed. What has changed, and you look at this studio in here, which is from the late 70s, the technology has clearly changed in a lot of ways. I'll talk technology first. You can tell we've gone from analog to digital. And, even you today are using digital technology. But it's not just the technology. I think the expectations have changed and how people do things physically has changed. When we started out, maybe even you guys, we did an event. Here was the audience. Here was the stage. You came in. You went to the event. You were done. You left. People hung out in hallways, waited for workshops. It's completely different now. So I found our communication is really, really different. We started in 2006 with taking over hallways and getting to people where they were socially, and then engaging them from a social perspective, to really, because that's how people were engaging.
But how did you sell that in? How did
How did you
actually get the
No.
IBMs of the world to say,
Chris
is coming in, and we're going to say, we're going to move all that at big expense, and we're going to move it to the hallway.
Yeah, this is a great story.
But just to interrupt, Chris said we started in 2006, so we started planting the seeds.
Yeah.
In 2002.
2002. We tried to get clients like IBM to think more about social spaces and where social media was going. You think as a tech company they would, but they didn't. Jill and I decided we went into our own pocket, and we created the first social space out there. We paid for it. We kind of used it as a way of saying to them, watch how.
What do you mean when you say social space?
Okay. This was, here's what happened.
What are you doing in the hallways?
What are you doing in the hallways? I saw people, the crazy thing is, you go to a big event like we do, you're in the arena, everybody's there, then they have workshops coming up. What are they doing in between? People were sitting on the ground, plugging in, charging, talking to each other, sitting in windowsills. There was no place to really be social. I said we should create a space where people can engage, they can power up, they can recharge, they can connect, they can share ideas, they can create content. So we did.
What did that first social space look like?
Okay. we had high boys. It was small. We started out, we could only get a little piece. It started out with high boys, almost like this, where we could engage back and forth, couches. We had charging stations, which were basically at that point plugging into a power strip, but we branded everything. So when you looked at this space, we took the brand from the event and we applied it to the social space. So all the furniture was white, all of the high boys were branded on the tops and things like that. So it was very clean. And it was very open. It was literally in a corner of Mandalay Bay, second floor on the conference center. So you walked out and you saw this space. You said, oh, there are TVs here. What are those for? We put content on the TVs, couches where you could hang out. Jill started bringing in things for people to play with, right? Like on the tables and things. And we were saying to people, okay, you need to tweet. Like, what is that? We brought in people literally to teach people what Twitter was, because we wanted to use it for the event to be able to get people to engage. So,
but how did you prove this social? How did you get? You have big clients.
Yeah.
How do you get them to figure out the ROI metrics of doing something like that?
Again, interesting question, David. Because we drove it first, they saw that people gravitated toward it.
But it was anecdotal. It was like the guy from the head of the group looked at it.
Oh yeah, we brought them in because the people we work for are really the conference teams, and we said, look, you really should be looking to do this. And so it was small. They saw it and they said, this is cool. Then the metrics come in. They're saying, okay, well, how do we get metrics behind this? And it's like, okay, guys, RFID, we have to tweet, you need to know who's here, you need to know what they're talking about. But it was a slow process.
But it was easy to track Twitter and who was involved and who wasn't, which was, it's also communicating that, yes, you have 5,000 or 10,000 people in your audience, and if only 1,000 are participating, that's a lot.
Yeah, and
it's not that it's only 1,000.
Say that again. That's really important. You have a 10,000 person conference. Mm-hmm. And if you get 1,000 people to participate, that is a good metric. That's 10%.
Yeah. It's 10%, and then where does that go from there?
Especially back then. Mm-hmm. Now, if we got under 90% participation at some events, we would say, what's wrong?
Right.
So, it took a lot of education. You had to lead the way. You had to show people. Literally, we had booths to teach people how to do Foursquare and to tweet and all that stuff to get them involved. The audience are tech guys. They're most software guys and things like that, or even when we're doing, you have KPMG coming in, we did Deloitte. They just don't know how to do certain things, so we showed them. But the ROI, I think, when they saw it and they started to see metrics, then all of a sudden they said, as a company, they need to do social media and take it seriously, and they did. So we kind of pushed the boat away from shore. Now they have major tracking of metrics.
Their social business is
they have a huge social business now. That wasn't because of us. That's because that's what's out there.
Right. Now, when you deal with companies that maybe want to be lower profile, what's the push-pull there?
We respect that. Then what we look to do is create internal conversations. How are you promoting what you're doing here to the rest of your company, to the people who are here? How are you letting them know what they can share and what they can't share?
Yeah, it's tricky.
But what's your definition of participation today? Yeah. If you said 90%, that's amazing.
Yeah, that's engagement with the event app to be able to find each other.
Are event apps dead?
No, they're becoming cognitive.
And that's because of what the IBM stuff is.
Yeah, but not just IBM.
Okay, what is a cognitive event, and what does it really mean?
All right, so
have you figured it out yet?
We know what it is. It's a question of waiting for the technology to catch up. But yeah, a cognitive event is one that it learns who you are. It reasons, right? It looks at what you do and it makes recommendations on things that are right for you. So let's say, David, you go to your event app and you say, I want to go to this, and this. The cognitive part says, you know what? You would also like this, and this. You should meet these people because you have shared interests. You should go to this event and here's why. So all of a sudden, the event app is giving you like the networking capability and the content discovery that you had to do on your own. What you could do now in an hour, what used to thumb through, pages of books to see.
But that's the key thing. It's doing it in real time. It's not collecting it, analyzing it, and using it for the next time.
No,
it's doing it in real time.
Yeah,
and I think that
But you said the technology's not here for that yet, or is it?
It's here, but it's a question of it being really, how do you utilize it? mostly right-brain people in terms of what we do. But we have to learn, like on one of our events, we had to learn how to program, using Watson to figure it out because we were challenged by that. The client said it needs to be a cognitive event. Said, okay, we'll have to figure out how to do that. We did. So we created apps that were cognitive, and we created activations that were cognitive. And the thing is that it works. But, David, the technology is constantly evolving. So you have to kind of see where it is now and then where it's going to go. Because what happens is certain things lead the way and then other things eventually catch up, like the stuff Jill and I were doing in social. Now everybody does hallways and everybody does social and everybody does that. Okay.
So and they take it out of the hallways and they take it into the streets, which is phenomenal. Right. It's such an amazing experience for everyone who's attending and a part of the. And a part of that event, it's very exciting what's going on today.
Yeah, because again, I think what we're seeing is, the influence of millennials in terms of what they want, how they want it, is very different. So we're trying to balance.
What's an example of that?
Okay, so what we see is like a baby boomer wants to know exactly what's going to happen. It needs to be set out in front. They need a set course. They want a set course. They need to understand that. They need to read it. They need to analyze it. They need to think about it. A millennial will come into a situation and say, okay, what's going on? What's fun to do here? What do I like? What do I go toward? So,
where can I have impact?
Where can I have impact? So it's funny, in running a company is one thing. We have a mix. We have employees that have been with me for 35, 30 years, a lot of them, and then we also have people that are 20. So when you look at how they think and how they learn, the fun part is they actually can learn from each other. But when you look at an event and your audience is diverse, they're all, let's say, technical, or they're all pharmaceutical, whatever it might be, they have a common interest, but the ages are really different. It is extremely difficult, particularly on the training side, because people learn differently.
And now a quick word from today's sponsor. Proving ROI for event professionals can be tough. With Circus, businesses can connect with the consumers they want the most, shifting unaccountable marketing dollars to directly acquiring an on-brand crowd. Visit circus.com to request a demo. That's surkus.com.
Let's go into that in terms of when you design an event, how do you change your perspective?
I have to change my perspective. That's my audience.
I think you, like me, I call myself millennial-minded. I think you are as well.
Yeah. I like to say that, particularly about Drury. I mean, we have kind of the soul and experience of a blue chip, but the spirit of millennial or a startup. And when we talk about our audiences, you have to know who your audience is to be able to create things. I find, David, that it's way more difficult convincing my clients who are not millennials that this is an important group, and how are we going to communicate to them, because it's not the way you expect to. I'll give you a really simple example. You asked for an example. We're doing a conference. We have a split audience. Great. Who's the entertainment? Well, okay, this group says chain smokers, and this group says Aerosmith. Okay, really, really different. So how do you come to a conclusion on that? And it sounds funny, but it's really difficult, because when we do large events, there's always entertainment, and it's a struggle. Do you want an up-and-coming band, cutting edge, that millennials are going to like? They only have 2 songs, Or do you want a rock legend, but they're older? They're not in vogue anymore? Do you go that route? That's a very tricky thing. A lot of times I do both.
What did you do? So what did you do in this situation?
I'll start out with like One Republic or something, and then I'll go to Aerosmith or Billy Joel or Elton John or something like that. You have to be able to you have to give something for your whole audience. If you can't find one thing that works for everybody, you have to find different things that work for the different audiences. And Jill is really out with the audience, really in the thick of it, in the spaces. I tend to get my time spent more in the strategy and in the arenas. Right. But Jill gets Jill drove this more than I did initially, because I saw this notion that there's a big gap between the ballroom and the workshop, and we need to capture it. And then Jill got into, here's how we do it from a physical space, make it engaging and open and light and bright and give people things to do. So Jill really took that end of it over, and you kind of need to do things for all your.
And Jill, give us a report from the trenches. What were some of the things that you saw?
Well, from the trenches, what I see at events is no different than what I see in my office.
Yeah.
And so if I want to keep our employees engaged and passionate and excited and wanting to step up and bring whatever they're interested in to the plate, how is that any different than what we want at our events?
You know, that's very interesting you say it happens at your office, because when we go out to San Francisco and we talk to all of our clients out there, or the companies, and they have these incredible offices. You have to take what's in their office and make their events even better.
That's it's a very high bar.
The whole trend, the trend of micro kitchens, the idea of they want the kitchen in their office is better than anything that you get out.
But you know,
and better than what they have at home as well. And so they want to hang there and be there.
But you know what's tricky with that is I think you can actually do that in some of the social spaces and expo spaces and hallways, even at larger events. What is very difficult is how do you do it in a big arena? Everybody's there at the same time. So you have different people who are there for different things, different levels of interest, and you need to be able to engage them. So I mean, even when I did second screen years ago, people thought I was out of my mind. They said, what do you mean they're going to look at their phone? I want them to look at me on the stage. And I said, they're looking at their phone anyway. I actually had to take a video from the back of the arena and show it to the client. Say, you see all those lights? Those are people on their devices. We need to capture their minds when they're on their devices. Let's do content that works for them.
So do you believe, I heard from people from IDEO and people like that, that they hate quantitative surveys now, that they're doing a lot of they just watch, they do observational work. Does that do a lot better when you talk to your clients than the quant?
It depends who you're talking to. That's what we prefer.
That's what we prefer.
I mean, it's because when you're doing a survey as someone walks out of the room, okay, so it's like you're feeling right then, but if you happen to have gotten a bad email during that session,
and also,
that's how you're going to be exposed.
The survey responses also, depends on who answers the survey.
Exactly.
But I think David's right. We like to put our finger on the pulse. We like to be out with the people. We like to listen at social events. We just kind of mix. I get half of the stuff on the event in the men's room. It just, wow. People say, God, that guy was great, or that was so interesting, or what did you like?
Well, remember, Steve Jobs tried to design the Apple headquarters with the bathroom in the middle because it was all about.
Absolutely. And so,
have you ever tried an event like that, bathroom in the middle?
No, I haven't done that. But it's food for thought. Food for thought.
Johnny on the spots everywhere.
But it's interesting because frequently on site, I'm not responsible for any one piece of content necessarily, and I will spend my time going from venue to venue, room to room, because we could be in 4 different venues for one job, and then take over the whole venue. So, and just see how people are reacting and responding to each different type of thing that's being presented and created for them as an opportunity. And so one day, a client came to me and said, they're moving the furniture. And I was like, yes, that's great. And they looked at me like I was out of my mind. And I was like, that means that they own the space and they feel comfortable here and they'll do what they want to do.
Yeah, that was a big moment, actually, because the client, they want everything per the floor plan. And Jill's like, no, you don't. You want people to be comfortable here. Grab chairs, get together, get to a whiteboard.
So when you're designing things now, are you kind of like, here's the things that have worked, and you're adding a lab situation to new things all the time? Is that kind of the way you think?
Yeah, it's an interesting idea. Yeah.
It's in reality, it's not necessarily the case.
Some things just work, and then other things you want to try.
What's bombed?
I think that was a good question.
Okay, Foursquare, but I hope they're not a client.
They're not a client. They have nothing to do with it.
No, early on we said, we got to do a Foursquare journey. Everybody said this is really great because we all were into Foursquare, and we get on sites like no one knows what Foursquare is, and you got to sign up, and you got to get this, and you got to go. So that was that didn't really work.
You have to know your audience.
You have to know your audience. You really do have to know your audience, and like Beth had mentioned before, the audiences are. I think they're evolving and they're changing and their expectations are different and you have to meet those expectations.
Tell us what that means.
Well, like the physical space idea that you literally just talked about, or you in San Francisco. You're going into San Francisco, that audience has a very different mindset in terms of how they work, in terms of how they live. When they go to an event, they don't want to be in a cookie cutter event. They want an event that reflects who they are, what they like, and how they like to engage with people. So you have to be able to evolve to meet that need, right? You asked a question before, Beth, on the private side of social, how do you do it? Anybody who's working in the pharmaceutical side already knows this. You can't say anything to anybody about anything.
Or financial.
Anything. And yet they want their audience is young and fun. So what Jill said is, we started to create private networks. We created Facebook. When Facebook first came out, we created Facebook for one of my pharmaceutical clients. We had to write the software. We had to give it to the audience, and they were able to use it, but it was a closed idea.
It was before they had their own intranet.
Yeah, exactly.
And even then, they're like, oh, we can't do this. We can't use anyone's last name. Oh, we can't use their picture. I'm like, it's for you guys only. Yeah. No one else will see this if they don't know how to contact each other. This isn't helpful.
I think that's what's changing. I mean, when it was when it was new, people were scared of it. Now, all of a sudden, it's every day, and so people. That's kind of the norm, right? It took a long time to get, in my opinion, the corporate side from the cutting edge to the norm. I always say to Jill, I'm going to pitch an idea now. We'll do it in 3 years. It'll take 3 years to do it.
Okay, so do you have a question? Okay, let me. I want to get into your mind. This could be scary.
You have no idea.
But what are the things that you are pitching for 3 years down the road? What is the next risk that you're going to take?
Now? Okay. I think that's a good question. I mean, we talked in the past, the second screen, using Twitter on site, getting people engaged. I think the cognitive side of what we're doing, AI, machine learning, this is it. And I think that it's an ethical issue, but from a production point of view, you're there. You have to be there. You have to understand the impact of AI. You have to then say, how can we utilize this at our events? Like we just did digital concierges. We had robots. You talk to the robot, say, when's the next bus leave? And where's this room?
However, lessons were learned.
Yeah, lessons were learned. The robot has to be able to hear you and understand your language and dialect.
And not have a lot of people behind you.
Like a bad Siri.
So when I look to the future, I talked to Jill about this. I would love to see all the walls gone. I think hotels are not right for what we want to do and what people want to do, which is why we started going in hallways. And I did a talk a couple of years ago and said we need hotels to understand the way people actually want to experience content or meetings at their hotels. Get rid of the walls, create spaces, let people mix, let them go to where they want to be able to get content. That is a huge struggle. When I say to my client, no, we don't want everybody to sit in the main tent. People want to sit somewhere else and they can still get the content. Why they want to type and do what they want to do. That's a struggle, but it's going to get there. I can't wait for.
Well, you actually see that at C2 Montreal.
Yeah.
C2
Right,
Montreal, the same screen is in all the different crazy places.
Absolutely right.
And people love it.
Or like I've been going to TED for 10, 15 years, and half the people go to the main event and half sit outside, and they're gaining the experience the way they want to, and it still works, and it's still valid, and it's still meaningful. That's a very new thought process where people say, okay, I want to lay down and be able to get the content.
Right.
That's how they want to do it. So I would love to see I'd love to see all the walls torn down in hotels, and I'd love to see hotels put in these social areas that we had to put in.
They're taking baby steps. I visited a hotel this spring which added what they're calling, they weren't even sure what to call it yet, a media room.
Yeah.
And right outside their main ballroom, and it was a place where couch, charging bar, screen, it was really small, especially next to the main ballroom.
Yeah.
And I feel like the scales are going to see, as you're saying, like that'll become bigger.
I
and bigger
totally agree with you. I believe that we're
smaller.
kind of in the era of the temporary workplace.
Yeah.
That the idea of like people are taking over Spring Studios and making it a campus and not
Exactly.
really programming it that effectively because they just want things to happen.
Well, Dave, that's a good point. You have to have structure, and you have to understand the story and what the content is. What I'm talking about is just changing a little bit about how people get that content. And I think we started our discussion with what's new and what's changed. I think you have to determine right at the beginning who is your audience and what do you want them to take away from this thing. Then create content that way. I always say to people that you have to figure out who the audience is, who the message is. Then you figure out what the value proposition is. Then you establish what the content is. Then you decide who's speaking and where about it. And I think that's where it's going to go.
Well, it's one of the things that we talked about a few months ago in terms of curating content at scale.
Yeah.
What are the different opportunities? I think one of the huge opportunities is the breakout. What's the future of the breakout session?
It's a great
and
question.
getting people on board, getting our clients on board, getting the people who they have coming in speaking. It's a.
Are you saying the breakout will go away, or the breakout will be different, or the breakout will be creative control of their own things? People will create their own breakouts?
All the above.
I think it's all the above. You know what it shouldn't be? What it is now.
That's a good point.
For real, that's what it shouldn't be. Because, the breakouts oftentimes the last thing on the list. Oh, we got a big event, we got a big party, we need entertainment. Okay, somebody has to do the breakouts. And that, unfortunately, that's where most of the hands-on learning happens.
Yes.
It has to be more engaging, there has to be more lab.
So the last question I have is, you go to a conference and you have complete amnesia to transfer the knowledge that you learned at the conference to everyone back at your office. Is there a solution to that? Or is that just a fact of life?
I'm not sure I understand.
The idea is you go to a conference.
As an attendee?
An attendee.
Okay.
I'm going to a conference as an attendee. I picked up all this great knowledge.
Yep.
I am doing it for my company.
Yep.
But then I tell nobody at the company what I just learned.
Yeah, bad idea. Let me tell you. Okay, my very first TED, which I was super excited to go to back in 06 or 07, they had something called TED University, and I was first time at TED, mind blown. Okay, at TED University, the people taught the classes, the attendees taught the classes. I said, this is awesome. I'm going to do this. So I got back, and of course, everybody wanted what went on at TED. I did basically a mini TED at the company, and that evolved into summer school, which you're aware of.
Yeah.
Summer mass. This year it's summer sessions. And so the notion of bringing the content back, for me, that's a responsibility. If you're an attendee and someone's paying for you to be there, you have an obligation to bring that knowledge back and share it.
Right. So anyone from our company who attends any type of a conference is required to come back and share best practices.
That's great. However, I don't think it's happening universally anywhere.
It's not. Which is you're leaving it on the
$3,000
floor
for a great
there.
conference.
It's crazy. So no, for us, that's the rule. If you want to go, you're going to come back and share with us.
Yeah.
And with that, Jill, Chris, thank you for joining us. Thank you for sharing your wisdom, and congratulations on being inducted into BizBash's Hall of Fame. Please, before we let you leave, tell everybody how to reach you.
Oh, well, first of all, thank you so much. I got a little choked up today on my way here, so Chris is talking a lot so that I don't get awful clamped. But thank you for including us. We are so honored. And it's an amazing opportunity for Chris and I as well. You can reach us at our website. You can go through there, which is drurydesign.com. We're on Twitter, we're on Instagram, we're on Facebook, all at Drury Design, LinkedIn, and or you can pick up the phone and call. We love to talk and meet face to face.
We're happy if you Zoom in.
So 212-213-4600.
Yep.
Fantastic. Thanks so much.
Now, David and I are back in the studio for a few closing thoughts. David, I know cognitive event, that term has become one of your new favorite terms for this industry.
Well, I think it's like the merging of AI, of artificial intelligence and data and knowledge in ways that you can actually in real time figure out what people want to do using technology to measure heart rates and brain patterns and who knows what else is going to be the future. And actually directing an event on the scene live is going to be what's going to happen. I think these guys are right.
It's like finding an adaptation of the Amazon technology. If you like this, try this, and on the fly. So you can find inspiration anywhere. You know, one point that Chris raised that's important for our listeners who own or operate venues is his desire for a venue with no walls. And he wants to get out of hotels. And I think hotels are aware of this. And some have started to rethink their ballrooms and adding different types of spaces to provide really unique, adaptable, and fun spaces for events. But ballrooms are big business. And so what I'm wondering, and what I wanted to ask you, David, is do you think ballrooms can get better?
I think ballroom technology is going to change. I've recently talked to somebody who said that ballrooms are going to be platforms, and they're going to be white walls, and it's going to be something that you can create in your own ways. And the smart hotel groups are going to think of them as platforms and have a better revenue model based on what that white box will look like.
So stay tuned.
Stay tuned. Oh, God, it's going to be incredible.
Exactly. Well, that will do it for this edition of GatherGeeks. And if you enjoyed hearing about the innovations at Drury Designs, you can learn more about how people are shaking up meetings in BizBash's Top 15 Innovative Meetings story. That's in our new fall issue. And you can find that at bizbash.com/magazine. We'll see everyone next week.
Yeah, I guess we say gather on now.
Gather on.
Thanks for listening to today's episode. If you like what you're hearing, be sure to subscribe to the podcast on iTunes or your favorite podcast app. We can be found on iTunes, Stitcher, SoundCloud, Player FM, Google Play, and Pocket Cast. Be sure to leave us a rating and review. It helps others discover the GatherGeeks podcast. We'd also love to hear from you. You can leave feedback on Twitter at GatherGeeks or leave us an email, gathergeeks@bizbash.com. We hope you'll join us again for the next episode of GatherGeeks. Until then, gather on. Invest in yourself and your staff with self-paced online event education designed to fit into your busy schedule. Subscribe to the Event Leadership Institute for only $25 per month and gain access to an extensive on-demand video library of classes, as well as interviews with industry leaders. Best of all, you can watch classes in small pieces or all at once. For more information, visit eventleadershipinstitute.com.